Hey friends, welcome back to another video and welcome to my living room floor. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about decluttering our minds. We talked a lot on this channel about minimalism and with that decluttering, mainly your stuff in your space. But I think decluttering your mind is something that is really important that we don't talk about enough, and our minds can also become really cluttered and littered with a lot of stuff that we don't need. And our mind is a very special, important, sacred space that we want to keep clear as well. I think all of us, or most of us, have a lot on our minds. We're thinking about things 24/7, and I think a lot of the thinking also goes on very unconsciously, especially when we tend to be more of the anxious type, which I definitely am. And then all that thinking and worrying and that full mind can really be a burden, especially energetically. And yeah, today I want to talk about how to clear our minds a little more and have a little more peace and quiet up here, and with that just have more peaceful and quiet and a lighter life, which who doesn't want that? These are things that I definitely need to remind myself of very, very regularly. I'm not yet a master of a quiet mind yet, and it's something that I keep practicing and have to keep reminding myself and keep up with the practices and these tips. So we're kind of on this learning journey together. So number one is to consume less. So when we're trying to declutter our minds, stuffing more things into our minds doesn't help it become quieter. In any case, it will probably just make it worse. Just like decluttering your space, you want to first of all really control what is coming in to successfully declutter and have less. So same with our mind. So be super conscious and very intentional about what you put into your mind. We now live in an era where information is just everywhere and so easily accessible, which has so many benefits, but we also have to be very protective of our mind and what we put in there and be very selective. So think about all the things that you consume. So things like TV shows, movies, TV in general, but also books, social media is of course a big one. Things like the news or even podcasts, just any type of information that goes into your mind. I'm not saying you have to completely stop any type of information going into your mind. I think that is also impossible, but to be very selective, as I said, with what you do consume, reduce it to as little as possible, really pick out the things that truly bring you value. Now, I don't want to demonize any platform per se, and I think each platform has their benefits and has things that can really bring value, but each platform also has a lot of trash that we don't want to be feeding into our mind. You wouldn't put trash into your house, so why put trash into your mind? So be really careful what goes in there. My biggest weakness definitely is social media. I try to limit my time there. I set a timer on Instagram that tells me when to stop, but for some reason I always keep bypassing that. It is something that I really have to learn to get a grip of, and it's so hard, and I think it's something that is really hard for a lot of us. I definitely struggle with the explore page. That is kind of my black hole that I fall down into. And yeah, but I also definitely try to declutter, for example, who I follow, and to be really selective of what comes up in my feed, and it really has to be something that brings me value, and I try to reduce the number of people I follow as much as possible to really only the essentials. And it's also something that I have to go through very regularly and declutter, because something that brought me value a few months ago might not be as valuable to me now in the situation that I'm in now. Then tip number 2 to declutter your mind, quiet it down, is to write it down. I don't know about you, but I definitely have moments and days where there's just so much in my mind. I'm thinking about all the things I still have to do, all the appointments I have to remember, things I have to remember, and I just keep thinking about them and thinking about them because I don't want to lose the thought or lose the idea. And my biggest tip is just to write it down. Have some sort of notepad, notebook, journal, whatever, to write down your to-dos, write down your appointments, write down ideas that you maybe have, maybe creative ideas, maybe even on your phone, on a note app to write down your creative ideas. I definitely have a lot of different lists on my phone for ideas that just pop up into my head or things I just want to hold on to and not forget. And I find that as soon as I write them down, I'm able to let the thought go and my mind just clears up instantly. So that really is a big tip of mine. If you feel like you have so many things on your mind that you want to not forget or just have a lot on your mind, write it down and you'll find that you're able to quiet your mind quite instantly. Also, not necessarily to-do or appointment type things, but if you just have a thought, a question, a problem that you find keeps going on and on in your mind because you're trying to solve it, so you keep thinking about it and thinking about it and it's occupying so much space in your mind, it's also a great idea to write it down. Same with something you're passionate about, angry about, sad about. Write all those things down and it's like magic. As soon as you put pen to paper, you truly feel a weight that is being lifted off. All these thoughts that do really weigh on you start evaporating. I oftentimes forget how helpful this tip is, especially for problems or questions that I have that I just can't seem to find an answer to. As soon as I write down my thoughts, even though they're exactly the same as in my head, you just start to see things from a different perspective and you oftentimes find the answer that you're looking for, or at least are able to, in a sense, have processed off the emotion or the thought or the question, and your mind is just so much more quieter. And with a quiet mind, you can approach the problem so much more effectively. You can approach everything else that you need to handle alongside of it more effectively. It really is a huge help that I think most of us underestimate. Now, tip number 3 is to do less. This is a big one for me. I'm someone that has a really hard time doing less. I do so much, too much probably. And I find that on those days where I want to do a lot, where I want to knit and bake and read and go to this appointment and this event and clean and whatever, when I have just so much that I want to do today, I find that my mind is also really full, trying to keep everything in check, think of everything. And I find that when I do try to clear my schedule just to focus on 1 or 2 things for the day, my mind is also so much more quiet. And I truly believe that when you slow down your body, you also slow down your mind. This is something I constantly have to remind myself of because I do have a lot of hobbies and things that I find a little joy and fun in. I want to do them all on the weekends and cram it all in on the weekends. But if I pack my days so full, then those things aren't also that enjoyable anymore because you're just thinking of, oh, I want to do this, and then I want to do this, and then I want to do this, and your mind just starts getting so full and it's not enjoyable anymore. It feels more hectic, more stressful, and that is not something that we want. So if you're someone like me, maybe try this out as well. I know it's something that's really difficult for someone that tends to pack their days so full, but to do less, do far less, only pick 1 or 2 things and to go with the flow, go with the day, and you'll find your mind is so much more quieter and the day is just so much more enjoyable with a mind that is not racing at 1,000 miles per hour. And the next thing that is really important, and especially important for long-term benefits of a more quieter, calmer, more peaceful mind, is meditation. Now, with meditation, what we often envision is someone sitting really rigidly with eyes closed for hours and hours. Of course, you can do that as well, but I think for most of us that is not very achievable or not very realistic. Start super small, just do 2-minute meditations, 5-minute meditations. We all have 5 minutes in our day, even if it doesn't seem like it. And it's something that I definitely have to tell myself, that I have time for meditation. I often feel like I don't have time for meditation, but who doesn't have 5 minutes? It's definitely better than not meditating at all. And it really is about getting out of your head and into your body. And with that, you really quiet your mind. You, in a sense, not stop the thoughts, but you really quiet them down, and you really focus, and you focus on bodily sensation. So you don't even have to close your eyes or to sit really rigidly to meditate, but it's just about focusing, for example, on your breath. That is something that is often recommended. Notice how your tummy or your chest expands when you breathe in and how it falls when you breathe out. And notice how your hands feel. What are they resting on? Are they cold? Are they warm? How does the ground feel like? What are you sitting on? How does the air feel like? Is there a breeze? Is it hot? Is it cold? Just notice, go into your body for a second and notice. Are you maybe tired? Are you maybe hungry? Are you holding tension somewhere? Be really present with your body. And coming out of your mind and going into your body, we automatically quiet down our minds, and we stop this 24/7 thinking for just a second. And it sounds really easy, but it's actually so hard, because at least for me, and I'm sure this is the case for most people, a minute in, the latest, you start thinking about things again, and your mind starts getting louder again, and you're leaving your body and entering your mind again. And you really have to notice that, and notice that, wait a minute, I'm starting to fall into this thinking pattern again of this loud mind, and to consciously bring your attention back to your body, to your breath, to the sensations. So it's something that you definitely have to practice a lot and do very regularly, just like cultivating a minimalist household. You really have to, where you have to declutter a lot and get rid of things. The next step is kind of similar to meditation, that is getting into a flow state. It is also where our mind quiets down, we become really focused on one thing, and we don't have all this noise and all these thoughts going on in our mind. Our mind goes into a flow state when we are engaged in a task that is not too simple and not too difficult. It is just the right amount of challenge, and your mind becomes so focused on the task that everything else quiets down. So you have, I guess, like this singular thought process going on in your mind. And it is something that is very enjoyable, and often we find tasks enjoyable where we do get into a flow state. So for me, for example, that is when I paint, when I knit, sometimes depending on what I'm cooking, when I'm cooking as well. Think about tasks that you really enjoy. Mostly those are tasks where you forget time. The concept of time completely changes when you do enjoyable things where you do get into a flow state. And next time you do have one of those tasks, try to notice what's going on in your mind. How loud is it? How soft is it? How focused are you? And doing practices like these regularly also means that you're spending more time during the day, more focused with more singular thoughts instead of all these thousands of thoughts going on in your mind. So just a simple way to have a little less thoughts and quiet your mind a little bit more. And last but not least, how to declutter your mind, have less going on in your mind, is to declutter your stuff. So I made a video called Benefits of Minimalism, or How Minimalism Changed Me. And one of the things I noticed is that I feel like I have a more clearer mind, or it feels lighter in a sense. And I think it's because I have less stuff. And every item you own, I believe you have to store somewhere in your brain to know that you have that and where you can find that. So the more stuff you have, the more you have to keep up with mentally, and the less stuff you have, the less you have to keep up with mentally. So I truly believe that by decluttering your things, you're automatically also decluttering your mind, and you have less you have to keep up with. So the other way around, the more you have, the more you have to keep up with. So if you own a house, you have a mortgage, if you have a car, you have to mentally keep up with the car. When is it due? When does it have to go to the shop? When all those things. When you have pets, you have more on your mind. When you have children, you have more on your mind. So the more you have, the more on your mind you have. The other way around, the less you have, the less things you have to clutter up your mind. So benefit of minimalism, declutter your stuff, and you're also decluttering your mind. It is something I truly didn't think was possible or even a thing before I started minimalism. It is only when I got into minimalism and when I reflected back on how minimalism actually changed me, how I feel different now, it is only then that I noticed that I feel lighter. My mind feels quieter and calmer. So let me know, I'd be really curious if there's something that you've also noticed as a minimalist, that your mind is just more free, you just feel more free in general because you have less stuff. Does that also impact your mind and your thoughts and how full you feel like your head is? It'd be really interesting. Or am I the only one? So these are my tips for today on how to declutter your mind, have less going on up here, because we all have far too much going on in our heads. Let me know if you enjoyed these tips. Are these things that you've also already been implementing? I'm definitely still on the journey to implement these things more and more. I have to remind myself of these practices on a very regular basis. Sometimes I'm really good with keeping up with them, sometimes I'm really not. But we're on this learning journey together, on this minimalism journey together. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a thumbs up and send this video to someone who really needs to clear their minds. I don't think I can think of anyone who doesn't need to clear their mind. So it really helps me out if you send this video to someone who could really benefit from it, and subscribe if you want to see more of me and my videos on minimalism, simple living, healthy living. And yeah, I'll see you in my next video. Bye.